As midnight crept up on New Year's Eve, the chill of winter wrapped itself around the quaint little town of Brooksville, making every breath feel like a ghost sigh escaping into the night. The townsfolk bustled about, preparing for the annual celebration, a tradition that had been cherished for generations. Lanterns flickered against the darkening sky, casting eerie shadows that danced with the whispers of the past. Little did they know, this year would be unlike any other. I was new to town, having moved there just weeks before the holiday. I watched the preparations from my window, intrigued. The old tavern at the town square was packed. Laughter and music spilled into the streets, inviting all to join the festivities. But there was an underlying tension that I couldn't shake. It was as if something was watching, lurking just beyond the light. As the hour approached, I was drawn to the tavern, compelled by an impulse I didn't quite understand. Inside, the atmosphere was electric, but there was a palpable sense of unease that flickered like the candle flames on the tables. I could see townspeople exchanging uneasy glances, their laughter sometimes tinged with nervousness. I overheard snippets of conversation about an old legend. Every 30 years during a New Year's celebration, the spirits of those who had died in the town would return to seek vengeance for unfinished business. They would emerge from their graves at the stroke of midnight, and as each bell tolled, a life would be taken in payment for the past. The story piqued my interest, but the locals laughed it off, waving their hands dismissively. "It's just an old wives' tale," one man said, slapping another on the back. Still, I could see in their eyes that they weren't entirely convinced. As the clock drew closer to midnight, the tavern grew raucous. People raised their glasses, their faces illuminated by the warm glow of the candles. I joined in the revelry, losing myself in the moment, despite the little voice in my head that warned of impending doom. When the clock finally struck midnight, the tavern erupted with cheers and fireworks lit up the sky. But just at that moment, the atmosphere shifted. An icy wind burst through the doors, extinguishing candles and leaving the tavern in darkness. I heard the flickering of whispers, soft but suffocating, circling the room like smoke. A sense of dread washed over me. "Look!" someone screamed, pointing out the window. My heart raced as I turned to see figures emerging from the shadows of the tree line surrounding the square. Pale and translucent, they drifted closer, their forms twisting unnaturally as they advanced toward the tavern. The music halted and silence reigned. The townsfolk froze, fear crawling over their expressions. I felt a shiver travel down my spine as the whispers grew louder, echoing words I couldn't quite understand. The spirits moved with purpose, their hollow eyes fixated on the tavern. It was then that the bartender, an old man with a face full of lines from years of worry, stepped forward. "You cannot stay here," he yelled, panic edging his voice. "You've summoned them. You must leave before it's too late." But the doors slammed shut as if held by an unseen force, trapping us within the tavern. A chorus of terrified screams erupted. The lights flickered erratically, and one by one people began to disappear into the shadows, swallowed by the darkness as they were dragged into another realm. Desperate to escape, I pushed against the door, but it wouldn't budge. The cold seeping from the windows crawled under my skin. I caught a glimpse of the spirits, a young girl, her eyes wide in a silent scream, a man clutching a bloody axe, and a woman, her mouth twisted into a macabre smile. They were the lost souls of Brooksville, forever bound to this night of terror. Amidst the chaos, I spotted a hidden door at the back of the tavern. It was cracked open, inviting me into the shadows. With every ounce of courage, I darted toward it, the chilling whispers urging me on. I stumbled into a dark hallway, lined with aged portraits of those who had once celebrated the new year, their faces contorted in anguish, their eyes pleading for release. Racing down the corridor, I could hear the spirits drawing closer, the sound of their despair chilling my blood. I burst through the back door and into the freezing night, but the air was thick with a heavy fog obscuring my vision. I knew I had to get away before they turned their sights on me. I sprinted through the town, my heart pounding in my ears, the icy dread of the spirits hot on my trail. I could hear their anguished cries behind me, feel their cold breath as I rounded corners, desperate to escape the horrors of that cursed night. Finally, I reached the edge of the woods, the spirit's wails growing fainter with each step. I collapsed against a tree, gasping for breath, the warmth of my life a stark contrast to the cold grip of the supernatural. I watched as the fog began to lift, and with it, the sinister shapes faded into the night. As dawn broke, I was left alone. The sun's light pierced through the darkness, revealing the town to be eerily quiet. The tavern was abandoned, the laughter from the night before a distant memory. I glanced back, feeling a haunting presence lingering in the air. The townsfolk swept back into their routines, seemingly oblivious to the horror that had unfolded. But I knew the truth. I had witnessed their celebration of dread, the price paid for forgotten lives. I left Brooksville that day, forever haunted by the souls who would return every 30 years on that fateful night when the clock struck 12. And as I drove away, I couldn't shake the feeling that my own unfinished business loomed, a shadow lingering in my mind, whispering to me, "We're not done with you yet."